Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Des Moines County Supervisors Forum conducted by the Greater Burlington Partnership's Government Relations Committee. I'm Tim Lundgren with Farm Bureau Financial Services, a member of the committee, and I will be your moderator this afternoon. Rachel Lindeen, behind the scenes, will be the timekeeper. In this election cycle, there is just one of 3 seats for the Des Moines County Board of Supervisors on the ballot. It is a contested race between incumbent Tom Broeker and the challenger, Sandy Dockendorff. Today, this forum will have a number of rounds of questions to which candidates will have up to 90 seconds to respond. The order of response will be rotated so that each candidate has the opportunity to be the first to answer a question. Candidates have not seen the questions in advance. I do ask that the candidates observe the signals from our timekeeper and stop your response when time has expired in fairness to the other candidate. Candidates have been placed in alphabetical order. Each candidate will now have an opportunity to give a 2-minute opening statement. Tom?
Thank you. Let me start by thanking the Greater Burlington Partnership for hosting this forum and to everyone taking the time to listen. My name's Tom Broeker, and I've lived in Des Moines County most of my life. My wife of 43 years, Pam, taught in the Burlington and Mediapolis school systems for about 40 years. I was a union iron worker for 12 years and operated a successful union steel erection company for 20-plus years. I've been a Des Moines County Supervisor for almost 12 years. 12 years ago, Des Moines County was in a budget crisis. Fund reserves were dangerously low or non-existent. Employees were worried about layoffs and furloughs. The Sheriff's Office struggled to afford used highway patrol cars, and county taxpayers were being crushed by one of the highest property tax rates in the state. Today, Des Moines County has a healthy budget. The Sheriff's Office is fully staffed, buys new patrol cars annually on a replacement schedule. County employees can focus on their jobs. Nobody worries about layoffs or furloughs. Fixing the county budget was a project, not a slash and burn. We didn't cut services, and we didn't harm employees. 12 years ago, I promised to work to control county spending to be a voice for the taxpayer. That promise was kept. I didn't make it all happen. County elected officials, department heads, and the good people in every department, they made it happen. Conservative principles made it possible. 12 years ago, your county property tax rate was $8.74. Today, that tax rate is $6.82. That's a 22% decrease. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Sandy?
I thought I'd start with some key facts since Tom has been on the board for almost 12 years and you've had an opportunity to get to know him, that you would get an opportunity to find out some key facts about me. These are things that made a difference in how I view problem solving and how you can see how I would deal with problems in the future. My dad was a union electrician and my mother was a secretary for the U.S. Army, and we moved every year. Until in the 3rd grade, I was starting at a new school, starting over every single year. So when I say that it's important for our county to be a welcoming place in order to bring new people in, I talk from a position of strength. It's hard for new people to come here and feel welcomed. We came here 30 years ago. My husband and I brought our young family here because of the great education and the opportunities that Iowa represented. This is the most beautiful place I've ever lived. I've lived on both coasts. There are so many natural resources here. But having lost my father when I was 7 years old meant that my mother, on a secretary's salary, raised 3 kids and put us all through college. That meant that the values that she taught me about integrity, a work ethic, and budgeting are the things that I bring to the table today and for the future of Des Moines County. Like Tom, I served 12 years in an elected position. Like Tom, the position that I was in, the school district was in a 16.8% negative unspent balance and was a year away from having the state come in and take over the schools. When I left, we were 25% positive. That was done on the basis of progressive values of bringing things in-house and not paying other companies profits on your tax dollars. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. There are many issues facing Des Moines County. If your term in office could only be known for one thing, what would you like that issue to be and why? Tom? And if you need me to repeat the question, I will.
Please repeat it.
All right. There are many issues facing Des Moines County. If your term in office could only be known for one thing, what would you like that issue to be and why?
I guess my focus, the reason I ran for the Board of Supervisors originally, was the financial health of Des Moines County. That's the primary responsibility of the Board of Supervisors, is to maintain the financial ability to provide mandated services. I have real concerns today about inflation and the economy in general and how that's going to affect the county. I know how it's going to affect taxpayers. I would like to be remembered for being a county being financially healthy. When I was done, able to provide services and do so at a low tax rate.
And Sandy, would you like me to repeat the question?
Nope, thank you. I think the number one problem that we're facing right now is the mental health crisis in our communities and in our state. And if I only serve one term, I hope that I am able to bring people together to the table to help resolve that problem. I have serious concerns about the change in the funding for mental health services. I have serious concerns about the budget going forward with a $50 million deficit between the funding for mental health from the state that is taking over and the $150 million deficit in the backfill to county coffers across the state. That would be the one thing that I think that our community could build better futures for both our communities in Des Moines County and for our families.
Thank you, Sandy. Tom, as the incumbent, it is fair to ask you two things. What is your greatest accomplishment during your time of service? And similarly, what is some unfinished business upon which you wish you would have had better progress?
Again, I suppose my, not really my success, the county's success, has been financial and bringing us to where we're at. And I, like Sandy, I'm concerned with mental health. I sat on the Mental Health and Disability Services Commission at the state for a couple terms, and they keep changing the laws. Most recently, we were informed by the state auditor that since the state took over funding, the county cannot fund mental health services. The county can't even provide those services if they're going to be reimbursed. It belongs entirely to the regions, and the regions' expenditures are governed by there's a board of governors at each region, a supervisor from each member county, a consumer of behavioral services, a parent of a child consumer, and a representative of the educational community. And it's more than just funding. There's workforce problems. There's the funding mechanisms can be as big a problem as the funding. When the government's going to provide something, it can't just give you money. It has to make rules. So it makes lots of rules, and no two cases are ever the same. So those rules don't.
Thank you. Sandy, as the challenger, how would you outline your qualifications to represent this county of 40,000?
My first degree is in psychology. I wanted to go to nursing school when I was the first alternate, and I didn't get to go that. So then I took the PACE exam and went to work for the federal government as a budget analyst for the Navy officers' pay. There I learned a lot about how you budget money and how you allocate money. After that, I met my husband shortly thereafter, and his salary allowed me to go back to school, and I did get my nursing degree. So being that the mental health issues in this county and in the state are of primary concern, my background really fits the bill. I've also been in insurance, worked in an insurance office and a construction office. I've held my own business, run my own business, providing computer services to other businesses. That means that I've dealt with the federal, state, and local governments and business people across my whole life. It makes me uniquely qualified to see the problems in a different perspective than what we've had in the past. And it's not that there's anything wrong with Tom's viewpoint. It's just that I think there's a different perspective that could help resolve some of the problems that we have.
Thank you, Sandy. What can the county do to address the workforce shortage facing employers today? Sandy?
Well, I think coming from the aegis of the education and the public education viewpoint, I sat across the table at a Lions Club meeting last night and talked to a superintendent and said, we have these issues around homecoming. And I said, what would be really great is if we invited some of the alumni to come into our building and talk about the problems that they see and the successes that they've had to help students understand what the real world looks like from a perspective that they could readily understand, that there are more cohorts in time, and therefore it's not an adult telling them these things. They're people that have been in the building just before them. And he was very interested in that point of view. We have to get these kids to understand and workers to understand that you can't not show up for work. And my thing has always been, do the intervention at the earliest level, at the earliest time, costs the least. So if it's third grade reading in order to get people to graduate, then maybe we start intervening at the 6th grade to help kids to understand that if they don't go to school, they don't graduate, or they don't get to have summers off, and therefore they're more likely to understand that showing up at work is required.
Thank you, Sandy. Tom, would you like the question repeated?
Please.
What can the county do to address the workforce shortage facing employers today?
I'm not really sure what the county can actually do. I would put this in the same category as economic development. A financially healthy community is more attractive to businesses and individuals. And the most important contribution the county can make to economic development is stable, competitive property tax rates, well-maintained transportation infrastructure, excellent and efficient county services, a well-managed county government that doesn't reel from crisis to crisis. None of that sounds sexy, but a lack of any of those things negatively impacts them all. Also, as you may be aware, speaking of workforce, the Des Moines County does not throw money around, as some of you might suspect, but the county saw value in providing financial support for the partnerships partnering for the future campaigns, all three of them. And we've been pleased with that investment, so thank you.
Thank you, Tom. There are multiple big projects going on in the Greater Burlington area, namely the improvements at Big Hollow and the playground at Dankford Park. What could the county do to support local parks and or other quality of life amenities in our communities? Tom?
The county's been approached by the city for a contribution to the playground, and we will be discussing that in I suspect in probably a couple 3 weeks. The Board of Supervisors has given conservation a great deal of support over the years. The board voted to let conservation keep Big Hollow receipts to fund improvements. The board loaned conservation $250,000 to build a sewage system, shower house, a number of improvements out there. And because that's it.
Okay, Sandy?
I am fond of public-private partnerships. I have served as the coordinator for empowerment and the decategorization program here in Des Moines, Henry, and Louisa County in the past, where we braided federal, state, and local money in order to meet the needs in the community. Parks and recreation are one of the great areas of being able to do that. As a grant writer, I know that having county partnerships on some of these grants means that the grant value is higher and that they can put the dollars to better effect. I think that county government is in a unique position to bring people together to solve problems and to promote the community better. I serve on the CHC Quality Improvement Committee. I listen to the difficulties we have in recruiting professionals into our community because of a a false sense of negativity that prevails in our public arena. I think that we can go a long ways towards solving some of those issues by appreciating the employees that we have here, both at the county level, at the school level, and making this clear that the county government supports the people living in our community.
All right. So we started with mental health. This next question revolves around that as well. Mental health of not just those in our county, but also across the country is proving to be of big concern due to not enough education or providers. What steps can the county do to combat mental illness? Sandy?
It's, again, the earliest intervention is the cheapest intervention and the most thorough. I think that one of the things that we need to recognize is because we haven't had a stable funding source for mental health services, there aren't lots of people in the pipeline to be mental health providers. In order to solve that, I think that we could create a situation where funding for their education could be, if they choose to reside in our community and provide services in our community, that we could help defray some of the costs for their education. I think that looking at educating the child care providers to be alert for mental health issues in the children that they serve, we've already addressed doing that within the school districts. But even at this point, if you find a child who has mental health symptoms, the care is not available in our community to provide them services. So if we're only going to identify the problem without having a solution in place, then it makes it very difficult for us to make headway in the process.
All right. Tom?
Would you repeat the question, please?
Mental health of not just those in our county, but also across the country is proving to be of big concern due to not enough education or providers. What step can the county do to combat mental illness?
Like I mentioned, the county is effectively barred from expending any resources on mental health. The spending is done by the Southeast Iowa Link in this area, Mental Health and Disability Services region. And that's how they do it in Iowa. I sit on the Board of Governors for that region. Since 2014, the region has invested heavily in local service structures. They've got a crisis assessment and evaluation for both adults and children, 23-hour observation and hold for adults, crisis stabilization, residential services. None of those services existed prior to 2014. We have workforce problems. They don't have workforce problems in more urban areas. Des Moines does not have the problems that Des Moines County does. There's more people with college degrees. I've advocated with Bob Bartles when I was at the Mental Health and Disability Services Commission to change some of those rules so that they would accept experience, so many years of experience in lieu of a bachelor's degree, and we had some success with that. It's a huge and serious and persistent problem, but like I said, there's funding mechanisms, and the best intentions of government, they stumble over themselves because everything isn't. Thank you.
Employers often cite the need for good, accessible transportation and power infrastructure. Do you feel the county is positioned to attract and retain these employers, or should it look to improve these areas? If so, how? Tom?
Repeat that.
Sure. Employers often cite the need for good, accessible transportation and power infrastructure. Do you feel the county is positioned to attract and retain these employers, or should it look to improve these areas? And if so, how?
And again, it's not me, but I think our secondary roads department does an excellent job. We just replaced the bridge just north of Casa, and there's only two highway connectors going north out of Des Moines County, 61 and 99. 99 is used heavily by agricultural traffic. Case uses it. It would be terrible if we lost that connector, if we would have had to embargo the weight on that bridge. So we plan for 5 years to get that done before it would have to be embargoed. We've added the budget. Every road in Des Moines County, every gravel road in Des Moines County gets gravel at least every other year. Some of them get gravel every year depending on the traffic load. But as I drive around and talk to other counties, I think Des Moines County has pretty good transportation infrastructure. Power company, I know that there's a problem. I've talked to Alliant with getting natural gas here. The natural gas supplies, we could have more industry if we could get the natural gas pipeline, and nobody's convinced anybody to do that yet.
Sandy would like the question repeated?
No, thank you. I think that the key to economic growth in the county is going to have to be high-speed rail. I think that we have many opportunities for bringing in different, I don't think that our power grid issues in the state of Iowa are going to be a one-trick pony solution. I think we have to layer the solutions. Access Energy has done a great job bringing in wind, solar, and continuing their coal production. You can't change the output of a coal plant as quickly as you can in other forms. I think we just need to understand that that is an investment in our future and still great for employers. I think schools should have wind energy in all of our public schools. It's a great opportunity to teach kids about the engineering that goes along with those, and the upkeep is not too bad. There isn't a company in northern Iowa that provides solar arrays for school districts and also provides training for the schools to upkeep those themselves. So it's a very good opportunity there. But I think a lot of the professionals that we'd like to recruit into our county to open new business and to expand businesses need to have a reliable high-speed rail opportunity to get them to the businesses outside of our community.
Thank you. Adequate housing for continued population growth is an issue in Greater Burlington. In your opinion, what can the county do or continue to do to help with housing? Sandy?
I served on the Housing Needs Assessment Task Force many years ago. Again, it's part of the transportation issue. We have plenty of areas outside of Burlington proper that have housing units that would be available. Probably not in Danville, but there are other areas in the county that would be ripe for improving. We have some dangerous buildings in this county that need to be removed and replaced with adequate housing. I think that we end up with having the low end and the high end, and it's the mid-level of incomes where we have difficulty having housing, and we need to look into that more.
All right. Tom?
Could you repeat that, please?
Adequate housing for continued population growth is an issue in Greater Burlington. In your opinion, what can the county do or continue to do to help with housing?
You know, I knew you were going to ask that. And to be brutally honest, I'm philosophically opposed to housing subsidies. I believe they distort the market and make prices higher for the rich and poor alike. But I accept that Pandora's box is open. It's likely impossible to eliminate all housing subsidies. I don't think offering tax credits to develop apartments where some residents pay less depending on their income is a productive use of funds, and we've surely learned not to push people into homes they can't afford. There could be zoning, a little looser zoning, such as minimum lot sizes. Those things could be loosened up. And I think any subsidies that are going to be provided by any government entity should be direct to borrowers, and borrowers are at the lower end of the housing market. Be transparent, not compete with the private sector, use real underwriting and accounting standards. If you have to subsidize anything, subsidize the borrower's interest rates.
All right. Many households have two wage earners working outside of the home or are single parents. Good child care is of concern for them. What steps can the county do to address their need? Tom?
The county doesn't really have an operational function to provide something like that. I would go back to keep a financially healthy county, good transportation, efficient county services, well-managed government, that sort of thing. That, in my opinion, that covers a lot of bills. Thank you. Yeah.
Very good. Would you like me to repeat the question, Sandy?
As an empowerment coordinator and DCAT coordinator, the needs of child care in the county were major stumbling blocks to getting people back to work. One of the things that was really useful about the DCAT program was that it used unspent dollars from a previous budget year to be able to be used uncategorized within our community, which means that we could braid money in our community to meet the needs, which means we could bring existing social services agencies and child care providers and parents together in a room and help define what was needed, whether it was training for child care providers to provide care for special needs kids, or whether it was helping parents to understand where they actually can access care. I think the solution long term is going to have to rely on the school districts to provide child care centers co-located on their campuses. It has worked well for Danville to keep the costs down for our community. We didn't have anywhere near enough private providers to provide the need. You have to look at the needs assessment. I'm a nurse, you plan, you do the plan, then you take a look and see how it worked out, figure out how to change it, and then go back to the planning table and start all over again. But I really think the county is in a good space to bring private and other social service agencies together to meet these needs.
Thank you, Sandy. Continued economic growth is key for Greater Burlington's success. What do you see as the challenges and opportunities for our region? Sandy?
Say that again. Sorry.
Are you going to say the same joke that he did? Continued economic growth is key for Greater Burlington's success. What do you see as the challenges and opportunities for our region?
I think transportation is definitely one of the challenges, but there is a lot of opportunity for vertical growth within our economic base. I was astonished to learn that we don't have what's it called? Sorry, totally lost that. We had an asset spill at one of our employers here, and we had to go all the way to St. Louis to get the personnel that were trained to deal with it. Seems to me like with the problem that we had in Yarmouth with the corn silo collapsing, we didn't have the cranes here to do that. I mean, those are things that we could offer as a business coming in and providing those services and the engineering services and the technical computer technology to other businesses. I see those as opportunities to expand. I think that it's really critical for our future tax health of the county that we expand the tax base, not just keep rates low.
Tom, would you like that repeated?
Please.
Continued economic growth is key for Greater Burlington's success. What do you see as the challenges and opportunities for our region?
Well, one of the opportunities, and I know workforce is a problem and there's not enough of it, but the Midwest and Iowa have excellent workforces, maybe not an abundance of them, but we have a I suppose, old-fashioned work ethic. I ran a business here for a long time, and I see the people at the county. There are great people here. Challenges, it's a rural area. You don't have access to some of the resources that a larger area had. It's sort of like workforce. We don't have the resources that a Des Moines has. When they had the collapse at Yarmouth, I went up there, and we got they sent out a total station. It's a type of transit, so that they could focus on that bin, and so if it moved at all, they could get everybody out of there because they had to go in and they had to shovel out everything by hand. So they learned a lot. They've had after-action reports. We had people come down from Cedar Rapids that's what they do is those kind of rescues. But it's a rural area. It's not economically feasible to have certain resources here.
Very good. And that's it for the questions, folks. So, as my closing statements, each candidate now has the opportunity to make a 2-minute closing statement of their own. As we begin with Tom, Sandy, why don't you go ahead and close first?
Sounds like
Are
a
you
video
playing
game.
Frogger?
I see. Thank you. I started working when I was 13 years old. And when I wanted to go to work because my mother had no movement in her budget for wants, just needs, I was told I couldn't go to work at 13, that it was against the law. And I was like, this is crazy. I wanted to buy books. That's what I do in my spare time. I read books. So I found the people to sign the right papers so that I could go to work, and I went to work in my local theater. I believe that people want to be able to go to work, but they have to figure out who they need to get to sign the right piece of paper to get them to the job that they need to do. And I think that is the problem-solving process that we need to embrace in government as well. We have to bring together the right people who have the right knowledge, who can understand how we can solve some of these problems. There are other communities across the United States that have similar problems that we have. I think that we just need to find the right group of people. The world has changed a lot since I was 13 years old, but people still need the basic building blocks to grow strong families, resilient communities, and better futures. Des Moines County needs to bring people to the table to solve the problems to access to mental health care, expand the tax base, and ensure that our taxes are spent efficiently and effectively for the future of everyone in our community. Thank you. I hope you'll vote for me. Sandy Dockendorff.
Thank you, Sandy. Tom.
Thanks again to the Greater Burlington Partnership for this opportunity, and thanks to everyone listening for your time and consideration. You might remember in my opening, I mentioned the county lowered our property tax rate by almost $2. We've all heard that you can't lower taxes without cutting services. But Des Moines County has great elected officials, great department heads, and great people in every department. And on behalf of every one of those individuals, I'm proud to tell you that Des Moines County did just that. We not only pulled the county out of a serious budget crisis, we did not cut services, we improved them, and we addressed long overdue maintenance issues. The courthouse has a new roof and energy-efficient upgrades. The unsafe front steps have been replaced, and the new steps are heated to eliminate ice and snow. The county attorney's office is in a safe location. We moved them out of the dangerous old police building and into a newly remodeled law office. The sheriff's office buys several new patrol cars each year, and they're outfitted with new video systems. The crumbled concrete that was the parking lot and delivery drive at the jail has been replaced, and the jail was outfitted with a new central control board and emergency generator. The county owned $250,000 to conservation to fund improvements at Big Hollow. The county took over all funding of DESCOM, providing dispatch services to all law enforcement, medical, and fire agencies in Des Moines County, and significantly easing the burden on city taxpayers. The Highway 99 bridge just north of Case was planned and replaced on schedule to avoid having to impose weight embargoes on the old bridge. The county is building a modern public health facility to replace the 90-year-old building behind the courthouse. Did I mention, do we cut property tax rates by 22%? I would be honored to serve you again. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Again, I want to express appreciation to both of you for being willing to serve our county. I would also like to thank the audience for your interest in the election process. I'd also like to thank Greater Burlington Partnership, Rachel and Dean, and of course Dustin over there hiding behind all of the equipment. Remember to vote for your candidate of your choice on November 8th. My name is Tim Lundgren. Thank you, and be well.